the United States is not spying on ordinary people who don't threaten our national security. And that we take their privacy concerns into account in our policies and procedures.
The National Security Agency says they not only need to collect American phone records for Homeland Security, but they are not about to use this information for anything but the intended purpose and will abide by certain rules and regulations. You will understand why some people are more than just a little bit skeptical. Our next guest is one of those. Welcome back to MidPoint. We question everything with the founder of Judicial Watch and Freedom Watch, Larry Klayman, joins us. Larry, thanks so much for being here.
Good afternoon, Ed. Thank you for having me.
Larry, here comes the case. It is the Washington, D.C. Appeals Court panel will hear arguments over the surveillance program for the NSA, and you're one of those who has gone to court and challenged this. What is your basic premise in going after the NSA here?
We were the first to go to court and challenge it within days. The premise is that by obtaining the so-called metadata, this is the most private information of your telephone calls, and there are other cases involving internet and social media, but this one just involves telephone records. By doing that, you're invading the privacy of an individual's home, in effect. You're breaking in. And there's no dispute as to whether or not you should be able to do that if you're the National Security Agency, if you're actually focusing on terrorists or people in connection with terrorists. But what the government has been doing under the direction of President Obama, and he's the lead defendant, I'm the lead plaintiff, is that they're obtaining the phone records of nearly everybody in this country, including myself. And I communicate with some of the other plaintiffs as an attorney. They're breaking into my attorney-client privilege, which is the most sacrosanct of all privileges in the law. So as a result, it's a violation of the Fourth Amendment. A lower court judge, a courageous judge by the name of Richard Leon, entered a preliminary injunction back last December, but he stayed it pending appeal. This case is in front of the D.C. Circuit right now. That's the Federal Appellate Court. And we have an oral argument tomorrow at 9:30 a.m. in courtroom 20. People are invited to attend if they'd like to.
Let me ask you regarding proof, because you have said it, many other people have said it, that there is evidence that the government goes after, and you just said it a few moments ago, the data that everyone in America creates, all this data. What's the actual proof that the government, the NSA, is sitting there collecting data on everybody, you, me, anybody watching this program right now?
Well, it started with the revelations of Edward Snowden about a year ago, but it mushroomed after that. The government, after lying to Congress through James Clapper, Director of National Intelligence, had to come clean, so to speak, as far as the government ever comes clean. And they had to admit that they were doing this. And declassified was an order. In fact, it was Snowden who released that order initially from Judge Vinson of the Federal Intelligence Surveillance Court, Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court, which sets forth that, in fact, they are getting into the metadata of nearly every American citizen. And this order applied specifically to Verizon, but there are other telephone companies like Sprint and AT&T involved as well.
With regard then to Edward Snowden, there are some people who say that when he helped release the scope of the U.S. government gathering here of information, some actually called him a patriot. Would you go that far?
I think he was a patriot. If he had remained in this country, he'd likely be dead right now. And as a result, he did flee. He may have gone too far in some of the things he did after that. He certainly should not have gone to Russia. That's the last place he should go, with a semi-neo-Nazi like Putin in charge of the place. But he did a service to this country. The American people deserve to know. It was being kept secret. He's basically ruined his life to do this, so you have to understand the guy probably is sincere, and I think he's a patriot.
What about those who say, and I'm sure you've heard this as well, many of them from inside the intelligence community will say that without a doubt, Edward Snowden ruined our global intelligence. He ruined the opportunity to actually find out where the bad guys are, and that what he did will create long-lasting effects well into the future and will actually, potentially, cost the lives of Americans.
Well, we're going to hear that nonsense tomorrow from our so-called government. The reality is, as Judge Leon ruled in his order, the National Security Agency and other intelligence agencies haven't foiled one terrorist attack with this overly broad surveillance program, which involves every American, not just those in connection with terrorists. And they make the argument in their briefs, it's absurd, I'm going to say this to the court, that this is less intrusive than a pen register, which simply grabs information as to who you've called. Well, if that's the case, facetiously, it's no wonder they haven't caught one terrorist. This is the kind of thing that the government pulls time and time again. They hide behind a cloak of national intelligence. This is an outrageous program which violates constitutional rights, not just the Fourth Amendment, but the First Amendment, freedom of speech, freedom of association, Fifth Amendment, because we have no right to challenge what they're doing other than in a case like this. And it has created what Judge Leon called an almost Orwellian police state. And this is the way the government keeps us down, keeps us from criticizing us, keeps us from rising up, because if we do, they're prepared to send us to the proverbial guillotine through smearing anyone who comes in their way. And you know, Ed, the interesting thing here is, as bad as President Obama is, and he's the worst president in American history, he's not even in control of our government. These are the people who are. Obama's the puppet. They let him do his thing and be a socialist and advocate Muslim interests in the Middle East and that kind of thing. But they're in control of what really matters to them. And in
Who
this
is
town,
they,
what
Larry?
matters to them is power and money.
Who is they?
They meaning the people in and around the National Security Agency and other intelligence agencies. There may be people even behind them. And these are the people who are in control of our government. It's a secret government which controls the nature of the way this country operates. And that's what's so dangerous about this Orwellian police state that we now find ourselves in. And
So then are you indicating, I only got about a minute left, Larry,
blocks it,
are you indicating then that there is someone pulling the strings of the president right now and basically telling him what to do and putting him in a certain position in order to make this all happen?
that can be the case, as a matter of fact. There's a great potential for blackmail here. And I'm not exonerating the president from his actions. There are outrageous actions which have violated constitutional rights as well. But I'm saying there are people playing a higher game here.
Who are those
And these are the
people,
people
Larry?
that
Do
are
we know
doing
how
it.
high does this go? And can you give us any examples?
Well, that's a good question, Ed. I would like to find out. We have discovery in our case that's upcoming when it proceeds. But it's not just for me, it's for people, good people like you in the media and ordinary citizens of we the people, to demand from our government answers of what's happening. And I'm going to tell the court, as I told Judge Leon, and ironically, as Chief Justice Roberts wrote in a recent decision about cell phones and how it's very improper to get into cell phones without a warrant if you're the police, that this is the kind of thing that sparked the American Revolution. If the courts don't step in, surely we are headed, potentially, for another violent revolution, because the people are not going to put up with this.
All right, Larry,
I'm
we
not
know you're going
advocating
before
that.
the courts
I
tomorrow
want a
morning.
peaceful revolution.
We know you're going before the courts tomorrow morning. We'll see what happens. We'll be in touch. We'll follow up on this story and see how it goes. Larry Klayman, a pleasure. Thanks for joining us again.
Thank you, Ed.
All right.
You're welcome.
After the short break, we return with both sides seeking to make the argument about one political party creating more jobs than the other. And at 51 minutes after the hour, Telling It Like It Is digs into the muck and mire of one of the dirtiest political races this midterm.